Oh, hi, Phi-Sci family. We're going to talk about some reactions today, about 5 basic ones that I would expect you to be able to identify when you saw them written out and you were balancing an equation. So let's get started. The first type of reaction is called synthesis reaction, also known as a combination reaction. We like to say that this reaction is kind of like a marriage. The idea is that 2 or more substances are going to actually react and form a completely new substance, but it is a singular substance. So maybe 2 things, could be 3, 4, whatever, but when they combine, you only form one substance. If that's the case, that's called a synthesis reaction. They can be from ionic or covalent compounds. For example, potassium and chlorine come together to form one compound. Okay, it could be molecular though too, with nonmetals. For sulfur dioxide to form, solid sulfur, oxygen gas, we form one product. When you have just one singular product, it is often just a synthesis reaction. By the way, did you know potassium chloride is actually what's used for lethal injection? Isn't that a pleasant thought? And also sulfur dioxide is that smell of rotten eggs you sometimes smell outside of factories. Another type of reaction is the opposite of synthesis. We like to say this is like the divorce reaction. We call it decomposition. Decomposition starts with one singular reactant and it breaks apart into 2 or more pieces. An example of that would be something like an antacid, like calcium carbonate. Sitting outside alone, it actually will break down into calcium oxide and give off carbon dioxide gas naturally. From there, then, we just saw an example of decomposition. But again, just to go back to this antacid idea, it is something that when you put it into your stomach, it will actually slowly neutralize the acid because it's a base, and it'll make you feel a little bit better. But this stuff is actually a lot like chalk that you draw on the sidewalk with. But anyways, start with one singular reactant, break apart into pieces, you're dealing with decomposition, baby. Combustion, one of my most favorite reactions, are basically anything that's reacting with oxygen. The combustions that we like to focus on are hydrocarbons. That means any object or compound that has simply hydrogens and carbons associated with it. This is an example of a gas grill propane. So if we put a little spark on that propane gas and mix it with oxygen, we actually are always going to form the same product, which is water and carbon dioxide. Now, some people say, well, if you're burning propane and you're forming water, why isn't there a puddle underneath the propane burning? And the reason for that is it's hot. So the water is actually in gaseous form, or water vapor. So that's why we can't burn a lot of things inside our house without ventilation, because of the carbon dioxide being given off, we could suffocate ourselves. But either way, this is called a combustion reaction, and these are the ones that tend to be a little bit of a burden when we're balancing. Take a look back at our previous notes on balancing if you need a little help with that. These guys in combustion definitely are something that can give you a little handful, but that's combustion reaction. Single replacement reaction is kind of like someone stealing someone's date. So take, for example, here, BC is a compound, boy and girl going out on a date, at the movies in line, and A walks in. A comes and kicks B out of the relationship. Now B is all alone, and A and C are dating. That's an aggressive move, but in the chemical world, if A is stronger than B, then A will do that. They'll swap out. And that's what a single replacement is called. If you take pure solid magnesium, mix it with hydrochloric acid, the magnesium will come in and kick out the hydrogen. So now hydrogen's all by itself, and magnesium forms a compound with chlorine. So magnesium and chlorine are now on their date, and hydrogen's all alone. That's what a single replacement reaction is. By the way, when you burn pure magnesium, it gives us a really bright light, and actually ultraviolet light as well. So something that we used to use magnesium for was old flashes on cameras, believe it or not. But this is called a single replacement reaction. Make sure you can identify it. Last but not least is the double replacement reaction. That is when 2 compounds are presented near each other and two of the ions switch out. For example, A and C might switch out, so now they swap their dates. And that's exactly what we say about double replacement, sometimes abbreviated DR. Double replacement is like switching dates. An example of that would be neutralization, which means a base and an acid mixed together. Both are compounds, but if you noticed, hydrogen and sodium switch, so now sodium and chlorine are together, and hydrogen and OH, which is called hydroxide, are put together. Another way to write that, as you know, is H2O. That's water. Believe it or not, if you mix something like drain cleaner, which is a strong base, and hydrochloric acid, which is a strong acid, they actually cancel out and neutralize to become just regular old salt, which is dissolved in water, plus the water itself. That's why we call it neutralization. It's no longer a strong acid or strong base. They cancel each other out. So just to recap, synthesis was two separate, or maybe three or four, but in the end you end up with one product. For decomposition, you start with one product and end up with pieces because it breaks down. For combustion, even though there's other types of combustion, we're focusing on combustion of hydrocarbons. When it mixes with oxygen, it always forms carbon dioxide and water. Single replacement reaction, we said it was like a couple on a date and someone comes and steals their date. Now the new couple is formed and this poor guy that was on his date is now all by himself. I think Celine Dion wrote a song about that. And double replacement reaction is the last one. You have two compounds set up and two of the ions switch. In this case, A and B switched, so now A is with Y and B is with X. It is a big date swap. That is a double replacement reaction. Those are the 5 chemical reactions that I need you to identify when you see imbalanced equations. There are far more in this world, but that is a good basic foundation for some of the beginning types of reactions. Thanks for watching. Best of luck.